Ooh, buddy. Yeah, that was fun to get off. I was eager. I was gonna have somebody help me with this, and they still might. But I just wanted to get this off because we got to get all the measurements to put our new pilot hubs on here so we can get our new wheels. I'll tell you what, these spider hubs, they're not light. These things are heavy. I don't know if there's going to be a weight difference, but man, with those aluminum Alcoas on here, it'll kind of feel a little light back here, I bet. Let's hope it all works out and we can find the parts we actually need, though. I literally had to take it apart to find out if we can get the parts. Before we get into this truck too much, I have to tell you a little bit about one of our sponsors. If you're already in the dumpster business, you've probably heard of my friends at Docket. They provide one of the most cohesive dumpster softwares there are. And if you are in the dumpster space and you still haven't gotten into software,
it's just that it sounds like you're becoming just like your father. What are you doing?
I just highly suggest you give them a chance. Just take a free demo, check the link in the description, and see what they have to offer. I promise you, it will provide you way more than you can ever imagine. Even if you're not in the dumpster space, they have a really cool offer for you too. By simply subscribing to their channel, they're giving every person who subscribes a chance to win one of the most important tools that you can have in a man's garage. One of the coolest speakers I have ever seen. Apparently, Docket is giving you the chance to win one. And from what I've seen online, these things are pretty incredible. Based on the research I've done, they're pretty water resistant. So a lot of people like them for the boats or, outdoor activities. And apparently even shockproof. I'm not going to demonstrate any of that because I kind of take care of my things and I don't really want to break it. So let's make sure it still works.
I don't even know my name.
There we go. So if you're one of those guys that likes to work in your garage and make sure all your neighbors know you have a good taste in music, this is a pretty good device to show them. So go ahead and go to Docket's YouTube channel. Simply hit that subscribe and that notification button. Make sure you get yourself entered to win your own turtle box.
Dearest dancing darling masquerade.
Oh. All right, so we ended up getting the tag axle tires off. Those were actually pretty darn easy. The only thing is we've got the steel wheels for the inside. We've got the aluminum bad boys for the outside. We've got the drums. We've got the bearings. We've got everything we need, the pilot hub, to fit this truck, except for one part. The first part, the rubber seal that goes right here, of course, is the only part they couldn't get to us in 24 hours. So, we got everything disassembled. Tomorrow morning, the rubber seal should show up. We can slap that on first, and then all those parts following it can go on, and we'll get the tires mounted, and this thing will be looking good right off the bat. In the meantime, I'm just gonna cover these up. I mean, they're already kind of dirty, so we're gonna clean them, but there's no chance of rain, but I also not want to take chances because I'm doing this outside of my house instead of in the shop just because it was convenient since the parts store is pretty close to my house. So that should be all right for a bit. One of these bad boys must have been stripped pretty bad because when I went to take it out, the whole thing came out, and that shouldn't happen. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this out and then go ahead and get some of the part numbers inside of there, especially one of the bearing numbers. I dropped off the bearings and the hub numbers at a local company. They're having trouble tracking stuff down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull this one out because one of the bearings on the other side didn't even have a number. That's still something they could easily figure out. But I'm going to see if maybe there's one on this side that does. And there's a company online that might be able to help me a little bit more with part identification. So there's multiple ways to do this, some more violent than others, but one thing you can do is kind of tap around. If you take the wheel off, it's obviously easier, but you can tap around, it'll just kind of pop that cone out just enough. Then there's a tiny groove in this cone where you can go ahead and even spin it off. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but that's what's been working for me. Well, she's coming out, just like that. Let the bucket cup catch some of that oil. Tell you what, that's not a good sign. Well, luckily this one's in place, so let's just hope the threads aren't all messed up. Gotta love it. No part numbers, we'll have to get some measurements on this bad boy. Since Keegan went home, this is a one-man show, so that's how we're gonna get the bad boy off. Done it on the last two, it should work on this one. Okay, we got it off, you know, ended up tearing up that breaker bar a little bit. Wedged that behind the wheel and popped her off, but we got her off. From here we're gonna match all the parts at the parts shop, get everything we need for that axle now, and then I think in the meantime let's go get some tires mounted so we can actually put together the drop axle. Okay guys, your first hub pilot is on. These are a little bit easier to do. I didn't film my first one getting done because it was the first time I've done it. I just really wanted to take my time to figure it out. I will tell you, these tag axles are a lot easier to put on than these actual drive axles. These will be interesting because those are oil based and this is grease based, so this one acts more like a trailer on a semi, installing everything. So a little bit more simple. This one will get more complicated. We've already talked about that one. I'm just really nervous about this one. This one, not so much. This was easy. Let's go ahead and get the other side set. We're gonna have to grease some bearings and grease the shaft itself.
Gotta give him that huck too and spit on that thing. You get me?
This is truly becoming my most useful tool for this project. Look at that. That sets this truck off. Imagine that on all fronts. And to be honest guys, that is a knockoff Alcoa. That's just an aluminum wheel, and I would say totally worth it. It's half the price of an Alcoa. Just imagine how much this entire setup's gonna cost, and it just made sense. I mean, it's gonna go to the landfill every once in a while too, so why get something crazy expensive if we, you know, probably will scratch it up a little. But either way, that looks 10 times better than those old Dayton wheels. I've messed up pretty bad. But I think there's something we can learn from this, or discuss at least. So here's the deal. Simple as that. It's not possible to do what I wanted to do. I have reached out to hub manufacturers. I don't need to explain it all to you guys, but I've spent dozens and dozens, literally dozens of hours doing research on this. What I thought was possible isn't quite doable. The idea was simple. Remove the Dayton hubs, replace them with modern hubs. The problem is the hubs don't match up to the bearings. There's a lot of, I learned way more about bearings than I thought I ever would, but the end of the day is the bore of the bearings I need don't match up to the cup of most modern hubs. And when I say most, I mean all. They do not match up. The bore I need for these spindles does not match up to the cup size I need to replace them. It's gonna be oversimplified the way I say that. A lot of you are gonna jump in and say, no, it is possible. It's not for this particular model truck. At the end of the day, this is a medium-sized truck. It's not a semi, but it's not a F100 either. So what I'm trying to convert just wasn't really done. This was a grain truck. They had Daytons on it for a reason, and I'm currently trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and no matter how hard I push, it ain't going in.
That's what she said.
So before you jump in the comments and say, no, Clayton, it is possible, you can swap the hubs. I promise you, for this particular model, it's not. There's no current hub that exists that does this conversion. So then I tried to find ones that were close and then do some bearings and different cups. It's just not possible. So I even went to a place here in town which has more manuals than I've ever seen of every manufactured hub and bearing combination there is. I was incredibly impressed with how well kept their catalogs were. Nothing. Even back to 1997, they found that the hub conversion, or the hubs, the Dayton hubs themselves that came on here, were already obsolete, and there was never a replacement made. So if you wanted this, you had to keep the Daytons. So it might not seem like a big deal. A lot of you guys are gonna go, Clayton, from the beginning, you should have done an axle swap. Should have done it. And one thing I thought I was gonna be able to do was find an axle swap that would already have this on it from an F750. The problem I had, and that's also why I thought this was so doable, Hub Pilot or Bud wheels that came on these typically were hydraulics. So that's where the conversion got all messed up. If I wanted to keep the air, that conversion wasn't gonna work for the axle swap. Those are the only ones I could actually find that match the whole, truck. So the other options are, I suck it up, put the Daytons on, maybe refurbish them, put new tires on them. They'll still look good. But I'm not gonna get that one thing I really wanted. That's what I wanted. I wanted that on all of the wheels. I can't get that with a Dayton. We could possibly, and I'm not even sure if this is a thing yet, but I could possibly have these spindles removed, then match them to a different bearing and hub combo. I'm not 100% sure if that's possible, but that would be the easiest solution on the front, I feel like. Otherwise, axle swap, which is super frustrating because I've seen a lot of schoolie buses do this swap, but again, their spindle and their whole axle different. The next option is adios. We just remove the axle, which would be a pretty simple thing to do. Is a couple U-bolts, remove the drive shaft there, and we're taking this bad boy out, right? I have found multiple axles that'll fit that are Hub Pilot converted already, and honestly, just the axle itself with the hub pilots and the brakes and everything is going to be significantly cheaper than the route that I was trying to go. The problem is, this is a 2-speed axle that is currently on here. The thing is, the engine and the transmission really don't care if it's a 2-speed axle. We can slap another axle in there. I found one that had a 5.17 gear ratio in it versus my 6.14, I believe, gear ratio. So this thing actually moves pretty quick for how big of a girl she is. If I put that 5.17, and bear with me, I've got a lot of numbers in my head. The thing is, we will actually gain quite a bit of top speed, but we will lose practically 10% of torque. 10% doesn't sound like a lot until you've got a load on here, and since we are using it as a roll-off truck, kind of defeats the purpose, right? So what we can do is we can do an axle swap, try to find the closest gear ratio possible, keep the 2-speed or get rid of the 2-speed. Preferably, I actually love the 2-speed. I think it's a lot of fun. And go from there, swap everything, and then do something similar to the front. The front might be a little bit complicated as well still, although I think simpler, but we still need to, match everything to, the steering and everything. Everything will be affected. So we've got to figure out just that hybrid solution without giving up. I'm trying not to just throw those Daytons on. Some dudes really love the Daytons. They're like, Clayton, you never should have done it. I already can hear it in the comments. You should have just kept the Daytons. They're great. They have a certain purpose, and you could have just kept them the way they are and made them pretty. I hear you. I really do. I feel like I let myself and you down as a viewer as well, because the whole video idea here was to actually start the conversion and show you guys like this finished, badass looking truck now. I failed. That's all there is to it. It didn't work the way I wanted, but I also want to show you guys that it's not glorious. It's not an easy process, but this is the direction I wanted to go. It is backfiring on me, clearly. And I think there's a lot that we can actually learn from this. I think some of you have probably experienced this in your business, or when you started something up, or when you had a fun project and you got in a little too deep. You thought you knew what you were doing. You thought it was going to be easy, and then it wasn't. And I think that's why this is hitting me so hard right now, because this isn't just one thing that has done that to me recently. So let's take a drive. I'll show you. If you follow my channel, and you have for a while, there's a high possibility that maybe since then you started a dumpster business or maybe another side hustle. And maybe on paper and watching other people do it, it seemed super easy and straightforward, or it seemed relatively doable. But then as you get into it, you realize all the other things you didn't realize. Well, here's another one of those for me. Long story short, guys, this building is crushing me. It has a lot of work done to it. If you follow the channel for a while, you already saw what it looked like. All the paneling's off, the floor is torn out, or a lot of it at least. I had to remove old plasterboard and drywall. I have now hired somebody to get ready to do the drywall and put up the new stuff. But just another example of, in over my head. And this one cost me quite a bit because keep in mind, this is a duplex that I bought and yep, no tenants here. So this is costing me monthly. I mean, I still have a mortgage on it, or the company does. So I'm paying for this thing monthly. Then I'm dumping money into it daily. And right now, no work is being done on it, which just gives me, I guess what you could call anxiety. I don't feel like I get a whole lot of anxiety or depression or anything like this, but this kind of stuff is what stresses me out. Because I might have got all the demo done and it needs to be rebuilt, but then things like this. Step 1 needs to be done before step 2. So I had to wire up new lighting and that's almost done. We got to run all the official wire to the switch to tie in these lights. These lights, incredibly expensive, but I have heard great things about them. Basically a can light, but they look fantastic and it will brighten this room like crazy instead of this that was there. A fan that you had to, this is how good this is. You had to flip one switch over here for the switch over here to work, and then you flip that switch and that switch turned on the fan. So that's gone. This will be a very bright room with that, and then the view into the backyard. I do believe this will be a really cool entry space for Unit 2, and Unit 2 starts behind what used to be this office over here. But just a prime example of, you think it's going to be easy and it's not. I knew this was going to be a big project. Don't get me wrong. I was at least smart enough to know that. But you, or at least I, tend to overestimate my abilities and my available time to do things all the time. But the drywall is here. The goal is for the drywall to be installed in this upper unit first, so then we can get the upper unit, rented, and then we can focus more on the downstairs unit, which you saw needs quite a bit of work. So a little bit of it will be done simultaneously, but at the end of the day, we need to get one of these going because it's costing me quite a bit. The good thing is I have somebody like Keegan who can run a large part of the business. I still have to be in the truck quite a bit, but today's an example where I only had to be in the truck for a little bit delivering dumpsters. But today, I'm going around kind of evaluating what needs to be done so the rest of the week I can focus on these things. But that's what hangs up projects. I mean, step 1 is what needs to be done, but you're focused on step 3. Then by the time you realize step, 1 needs to be done before 3, you've wasted all that time, and sometimes you're going over work you've already done. I hope you guys can relate to what I'm saying, but this just seems to be like a constant battle for me right now. And it's part of the reason this year, one of my biggest goals is not to get myself into other projects and to more or less double down and fortify some of the existing things I already have, like this apartment, or, I've got a good one to show you next. Just rolled up to the shop. Looks like Keegan already got 3 empty today. He's moving. But let's take a look at one of my biggest headaches. Yep, storage has started. Kind of. If you follow the channel, you already know about the storage build. It's only about a year behind now. So we do have some of the pieces installed. We've got some of the supporting braces up here for good reason. But the whole deal is this should have been together a long time ago. And it's not my contractor's fault that's really helping me with this. I made a mistake on this one, I believe. A couple, actually. The company I did get it from was rather reputable. And, well, it must have been that time of year or whatever it is, or everybody was buying these. But this showed up 6 months behind. I went through a bank, so of course I was paying on interest for that for 6 months. And then of course, by the time it showed up, the buddy of mine that was helping me put it in, because I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to learn as much as I could to help put it up. And to be honest, even then, he's done most of the work. I only got to do a small bit because I've been so busy. So besides the fact that, you know, I paid a company and they might have been the wrong choice, I honestly should have just paid a contractor to do this, because by the time this actually showed up, it was so far behind. The buddy that was helping me put it up obviously had other jobs. It showed up when he didn't expect it, or I expected it too. So yeah, it was like a double whammy. So now it's kind of half built so far. And honestly, by the end of this month, or, you know, maybe the start of next month, it really should be up and running. And then I can get into the process of getting contracts together and advertising it. But I feel like this has really put a damper on just the shop in general, besides the whole Dollar General ordeal that happened, where there's more details to that, but that will be the longest drawn out process, if anything ever happens from that. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, look back in a few videos and you can see, but I'm not going to get back into it. But in reality, because this is taking so long, I've kind of neglected my lot too. I'm going to have to take a Harley rake through here and tear up all this gravel, get it nice and even again, get rid of all these weeds. You would just be so surprised how quickly you can be psychologically psyched out when other things aren't going to plan. I appreciate every single one of you guys. I really do, because this video, not what it was supposed to be about. It's supposed to be fun, exciting, kind of, you know, upbeat. But in reality, this is my reality. And I hope as a viewer you can maybe appreciate that. I don't like leading people on that, you know, the dumpster business is super duper successful and that, you know, we're making millions every day or every month, or it's, you know, cakewalk. I try to show the ugly sides of the business I'm trying to build. And right now it's kind of ugly. It's got me bleeding pretty bad. I mean, again, I've got other facets that help me prop this up. You know, when one business isn't doing well, the other. Good thing is right now, dumpsters are doing well. You know, it's that time of year, roofing season, just clean out season, summer. So dumpsters are doing good. That's what's keeping everything else going. But come winter time, if that apartment and this look like they do right now, yeah, you might not see a lot of my videos for a while, because I will be freaking out. But again, I appreciate you guys, because you are what helps me continue to grow. I use my YouTube selfishly to basically force myself to continue to grow. And I've got you guys kind of like cheerleaders. Hey, Clayton, great job. You know, it's awesome to see. I love seeing the progress. Those things keep me going, and all the advice and little tidbits and things and ideas that you provide me. So again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys, and stick with me. It's been a rough year for a lot of reasons, but we're gonna make it through. That's all there is to it, because I'm not gonna take a loss on all this. There's no way. All right, y'all, while Keegan's wrapping up the dumpsters for the day, I need to go take the second gen. We need to go pick up some equipment. But I do appreciate you guys watching. At the end of the day, I got to keep working too. Oh, how nice. They even parked it under the shade. Huh. Gotta love rentals. Dang, that's fresh. Keep grinding, y'all. Hopefully, one day it'll all be worth it.